That was yesterday in New York. Today in New York, President Obama will also address a meeting of former President Bill Clinton's organization, the Clinton Global Initiative. Had a chance to sit down with President Clinton just a few minutes ago. Began by asking him about the decision facing President Obama on whether or not to send more troops to Afghanistan.
It can always be somewhat difficult, but let me say that to dispel one myth before we go in, it's just not true that the Pentagon always recommends a more robust action. They tend to look at the downsides too. I think what the president will have to do, obviously, is to think about what are our long-term goals in Afghanistan. Will this help to achieve them? And is this the right time to make this decision? That is, I think there's at least a reasonable chance that he will want to see this election question fully resolved. And either President Karzai confirmed and his legitimacy enhanced, or maybe a coalition government in which his main opponent becomes part of Afghanistan's future. Because I think the real lesson that the sophisticated military people learned is that if you want to run a counterinsurgency, you've got to have the support of the local people. That's why the surge worked in Iraq and Anbar, because the local Iraqi Sunni were bitterly against the al-Qaeda in Iraq then. So I think what he's going to do is have to evaluate all this, and I think he'll make a good decision. But what you want from your generals is to make an honest recommendation based on what they believe the mission is, and then the president has to decide. That's what they pay you the big bucks for.
Back here at home, health care reform, you've been down this road before. What missteps have you seen this time around? The
principal difference, let's not forget, between now and then is that there is no necessary filibuster number in the Senate. That is, Senator Dole decided that he wanted to kill all forms of health care, and he had 45 votes, so he could lose 4 and still have a filibuster. That's what really killed health care reform.
You said you believe we're going to pass a bill. You've called it, perhaps it'll be, you said less than many will want, an imperfect bill. What would be victory for you in your eyes with this bill?
Getting pretty close to universal coverage and putting in place things like electronic medical records, better management of these chronic diseases where 10% of the people account for 2/3 of our spending every year, reducing the extent to which we just pay for procedure instead of for care, having more preventive and primary care, doing things that will lower the cost of our system over the long run compared to other countries.
You have been quite adamant about that, and adding to the whole debate has been the discussion of race. Former President Jimmy Carter said that, quote, overwhelming portion of the animosity toward President Obama is racially motivated. Do you agree with that?
Here's how I would say it. I think some of the extreme right who oppose him on health care also are racially prejudiced. And if you listen to look at some of the signs or listen to some of the rhetoric, there's no question that that's true. But I believe if he were not an African American, all the people who are against him on health care would still be against him, because they were all against me too. He believes that. I sympathize with where President Carter's coming from. If you're a white Southerner and you've fought these battles a long time, you're super sensitive to any kind of manifestation of discrimination based on race. But what's driving the opposition to President Obama on health care is not race. Some of his opponents have racial discrimination in their heart, but that's not what's driving them. What's driving them is they don't want health care. They don't want the government one more time to take care of people who are left out and left behind. They're philosophically or emotionally or whatever opposed to it.
You have spent a lot of time recently with President Obama, had lunch here in New York talking about the economy. He is speaking here at your Global Initiative later today. How has a global economic downturn affected your work with the initiative?
Well, first, I would say not as much as I thought. For example, and I think, what I've been trying to do for these 5 years is to convince everybody who participates and everybody who follows this that being a good citizen today requires doing more than voting and paying taxes. You've got to take some action on your own, even no matter how modest it might be, as a private citizen, to try to solve the problems that the private economy doesn't solve and the government can't reach.
A final question. You are extremely optimistic when it comes to conquering diseases, illnesses like cancer. You believe we're going to wipe it out in our lifetime. What's the reason for your optimism?
My optimism on cancer is rooted in what I see happening in the Human Genome Project. That is, we've already identified the genetic variances that put women at high risk of breast cancer. So now people who have those variances should be tested as soon as possible after they're born. Young girls, for example, for breast cancer. And if we know that, then we can begin to test them when they're 30 or 35 and not wait till later. We're close on Parkinson's, we're close on Alzheimer's, we're close on a lot of these other conditions. Nanotechnology is going to change diagnostics. I believe within 20 years, when you and I are more in our dotage and we go to get our annual checkup, part of it will involve not going into one of those enclosed MRI machines. We'll just sort of stand in a cone, and our bodies will be scanned, and now sub-microscopic tumors will be picked up.
Well, encouraging to say the least. I know this is an important day for you.
Big day.
Thank you very much for your time,
Thanks,
Mr.
Robin.
President.